Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're looking at the armored Veritech fighter in Robotech. This is the armored variant of the Robotech Veritech fighter. You know, One of the things I kind of forgot to mention here before when we were looking at the Super Veritech variants, um, because I love the genres. Whether it's Robotech, and then we got into BattleTech when I was a young lad, and a lot of the same designs were actually there. The I believe it's the original artist, uh, and went by Luce. He had drawn the original mechas, battle mechs, for BattleTech, as well as drawing them for Robotech, and you know. I've never really wanted to get into the whole lawsuit and whatever. What we see here on the left knee of our armored Veritech here is the kite symbol. And unfortunately, he had drawn that in on one of the kind of Valkyries here, taking the Robotech sense of it. He had drawn that same symbol onto that, which I know as a Phoenix Hawk. Uh, he drew it onto there by accident, and then it got published, and there was a big lawsuit and what to do, and so on and so forth, and it just became a big mess. Until that had been seen on there was a tension there from Harmony Gold. They didn't want them using it, blah blah blah. That one company doesn't want another company having any rights to. I mean, I think you understand how all that stuff goes. It just is what it is. But you know, things happened. Uh, so to me, the Super Veritech is you know the Phoenix Hawk, and it's a 45-ton land air mech, meaning that it can be a robot like this, or it has the Gerwalk mode, or kind of your midway mode, as well as your aerospace fighter mode. Uh, Now this being the armored variant, now we can't transform into uh, our Veritech fighter mode while having all this armor on. Now, for all those that are a big fan of BattleTech, this is the Crusader. And here we are. Now, the interesting things are, you know, for me as a kind of a geeky guy that enjoys all this stuff, I can look at this and I can say, okay, well, here we have stats, and again, all you know all good things to the person that the original author that had created all this. Um, that allows me to just kind of regurgitate it and bring it to you as we start off here. Because he's the one that originally came through. Now, if I was to make this, I think I'd have the hull a little lower, and I'd go back and forth. Probably because I would grab it from a BattleTech sense. Okay. Um, I would want to put in here a different set of standards. So everyone will always grab stuff from their own experiences and how they want to operate things. Now, because this is a heavily armored variant of this, and I believe the Crusader was 55, maybe 60 tons. Now, I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've done Battletech, but I think it's close to that neighborhood. Now, when we look at what we've had for all of our Robotech and that, I don't see a tonnage here. But when we get into our Battleoids, they do actually have them listed as far as how many tons they have uh, for outfitting everything. Um, yeah, and I just don't see it here. So there is, just a little differences in how you're going to approach one thing or another. So, getting into this is our armored variant. Like I said before, we cannot transform into our fighter mode with that armor on. After that armor has been kind of shrugged off, In the episode where Rick Hunter had this on, it kind of gets fairly well destroyed. He kicks it off, then he transforms and goes into his fighter mode. So here we are. Let's see what we have for stats here today. Okay, of course, this is going to be Starfighter scale. Has a length of 14.1 meters tall. Um, there's our skill set. It's only the crew of one. Cargo capacity is only 40 kilograms, which is pretty much on par with everything I've been trying to create when I'm doing like the GI Joe and the other stuff. It's always around that same weight category, right? Consumables, we have about 1 week's worth of survival packs. There is no cost associated because this is strictly a military vehicle and is not open for civilian purchase. There is no hyperdrive on here. For anyone in the Star Wars universe that wants to bring this in here, which I've talked about it for many years, and at some point we are going to have to kind of kick this off as one giant universe with all this stuff in here. There is a nav computer on board, considered short range for sublight speeds. It has a maneuverability of 1D because this is, of course, in Battleoid soldier mode. Now, we have a space of 4, so this does not go as fast as what our fighters go. It does have some thrusters and everything else, most notably the big thruster packs on this back. But because of the shape, the size, and everything else, it is significantly slower. Atmosphere wise, we can move about 800 kilometers an hour. We have a hull of 8D. Now we can shred or shrug off all this extra stuff, and that takes us down to a 5D hull. Now that's not unheard of in the Star Wars universe. We do have some ships that do have a 5D hull, so it is well within the realms of probability. Now, what I will say here is, as we're looking at our, I believe this would be the 1J model with only the two antenna on top. Um, that means that if you wanted to run any of these as just straight Veritechs, your hull is only going to be a 5D. Now, we were looking at the Super Veritechs before, and I believe they had a hull of 6D. So if you took all that armor off, because it's not covering everything, not as much as what we have here, that takes us down to a 5D hull. So please do keep all that in mind. There are no shields on this, so it's just whatever our armor can absorb. Sensor wise, for our what looks like a 1J here, we have a passive scan out to 15 or 1.5 kilometers at a 0D bonus. We have an active scan going out to 2.5 kilometers at a 1D bonus. A search, an active search, going out to 4 kilometers at a 2D bonus, and a focus out to 100 meters at a 2D bonus. Now, keep in mind what this has compared to the others. Some of these sensors might be kind of knocked down a little bit because I want to say I think the sensors are a little worse on this than what they are in our others. Now, that can be explained away just simply by saying the fact that with all that extra armor, we're not able to use our sensors as well. Because I do believe the focus was out to about like 200 or 300 meters. Um, if we wanted to run this as just strictly this type, that armor can't come off, like it's a Crusader battle mech out of Battletech, I think I would keep everything the way it is. If you wanted to keep it in a strictly a Robotech or Macross kind of look at everything, keep it the way we have it here that the author had written out. I think it works pretty well. Okay, so weapons. We do have the two jet fighter high powered nose laser cannons. Unfortunately, um, they're only usable in jet mode. Okay, so they're there, but you're not going to be able to use them in this mode. Has a fire control of 3D and the damage is 6. 60, I should say. Now we have the head mounted lasers just like before. So fire control is 4D. Um, and depending on what variant we have, now we have the J model being pictured here, the J and the D, I should say. Um, and the D, if you look at it, it's a VT, so it's a Veritech trainer. Okay, so we have the A is only has a 1D damage for the antenna, a 2D for the J and the D variant, and a 4D for the S variant. All right. Most notably, these are going to be used for like cutting purposes and all that. Um, kind of going from there. We have 6 missile hardpoints, which is our standard in the Veritech mode. Um, these are not used while in armored Veritech until the extra armor is released. We do have the gun pod, so it's the same gun pod as before. So in the jet mode, we have a 3D fire control. Guardian Gerwalk mode is a 2D, and Battleoid Soldier mode is a 1D bonus. Now, if we do want to do a short burst, just like before, we have a 3D. If you want to do a long burst, it's a 60 damage. If you want to do a full round fire, it's going to be 90 damage. And keeping in mind, it's the same rate of fire 10 rounds for a short burst, 20 rounds for a long burst, 40 rounds for a full burst. And we only have about 200 rounds per clip. Now, this can be reloaded. I don't know how many clips you're going to have, but if you're using ammo, keep that in mind. Now, hopefully, we start getting into, and I think we are, all the fun things that the armored variant has. We have 6 long-range missile launchers mounted on the upper hips. So let's kind of scroll up here. That is these little bad boys right here. So if you can see me moving my mouse, wonderful. If you can't and you're just listening to it, there is an armored pod on covering the hip section, which would limit your maneuverability in some regards. Um, but we have some large missiles that can shoot out of there. These missiles are long range, has a fire control of 2D. Now, like I had mentioned before, most of these missiles are doing about 8D in damage, which really isn't all that overpowered or anything from our Star Wars universe that we're kind of hijacking the system from. Our concussion missile launchers were about, I believe, a 70. Our um, proton torpedo launchers were a 9D. So this hits middle of the road there. Okay, so we also have 18 medium range missiles mounted on the lower arms. Now, these are considered turrets because the arms can move back and forth. We do have a fire control of 2D. These are going to be medium range missiles. So, in that regard, we should probably just have 8D for damage. We have 56 short range missile launchers, 22 mounted on 2 shoulder launchers, 10 mounted in the chest launchers, 16 mounted in 4 side leg launchers, 8 mounted in rear leg launchers. Um, Robotech had done a ton of missiles. I mean, they more or less had missiles everywhere. So that gives us 56 possible missiles to launch out with a 2D for targeting. And we can fire that in any combination, but it's going to be about 8D damage for every missile. Now, keep in mind, these are shorter range because these are, they're shorter missiles, short range, you're going to be closer in. Okay? Uh, for Battleoid hand to hand combat, we would get a 7D for a punch, a 5D for a kick. A stomp is going to be a 6D, and body flip, we can do about a 5D damage. Now, um, in the Battleoid mode, may use all the pilot's own personal combat skills such as brawl, martial arts, brawling parry, all that fun stuff. Plus the addition of what we have. Uh, Typically, it's like a +1 for firing and shooting and all that. And our maneuverability would be added in there as well. And scrolling back up here, I believe our maneuverability was 1D. So you would be able to add a 1D to that. Okay. Let's see here. Guardian mode may use the same skills at half. So that's after we throw the armor off, though. We can't get into that until after we throw that armor off. So it's the same write up that we had before. He was able to kind of copy and paste this over. Once he had kind of gotten the same thing I do. Once you have that base that you kind of want to go off of, and then you add or subtract wherever you need to go, and then you get your new vehicle or variant like we have here. Now, the same as what we've had as well. The other equipment, the fuel capacity. This thing has a lifespan about 12 years. If you're using constantly, if you're stuck somewhere and you're just doing a constant burn, you can fly for about 6 years. It's going to be very uncomfortable, but obviously that's not going to work because you're going to have to stop, get some food or something, or maybe if everything is set to go and you find one of these 4 years later, the person's expired, but you know, you may have 2 years worth of time that you can run this full bore. Okay, radar, because we can throw a radar module on here. We can scan out to about 200 miles. We have motion detector, collision warning system, the video, audio, the radio, video communications. Um, for all those that are big fans of this, quite often he was able to hit the button and you could see each other, and it could be split up to I think like three, maybe four different screens or whatever, so you can talk back and forth. You know who you're talking to. Right. We have laser communications for long range directional line of sight, which goes out to 150,000 miles. Laser targeting system for about a 500 or 200-mile range. Combat computer calculations, external audio pickup, loudspeaker, external video surveillance system, telescopic optical enhancement, shoulder headlight spotlights, hydraulic pilot chair, which I think might get a little interesting on this one, but it would very well work still. Looking at this, having the rocket packs on the back, it still doesn't fully get in the way. Plus, I believe, and for everyone that's yelling at the screen, the head actually goes forward. So we do have the notch here, so that should allow the head to actually tilt forward for the seat to come up. Okay, and let's see, we have our ejector seat, our self destruct, last ditch device, heat radiation shields, which is going to be in there, although I don't think you're going to be able to get to it with, with you being in the armor. We have independent oxygen and circulation system. And last but not least, the detachable pilot's compartment. Most notably, Rick Hunter and Lynn Minmay was in the cockpit when their Veritech had been more or less trapped and kind of destroyed there by the Zentradi. And Rick Folker had actually taken it off and put it underneath his Veritech's arm to get them to safety. All right, description. Um, this is an armor shroud for the standard Veritech/Valkyrie fighter. It can only be used while in Battleoid soldier mode. While it is in this configuration, the fighter's speed and maneuverability is highly limited, with extra boosters and maneuvering thrusters to give it the speed that it has in this mode, comparative to the standard Battleoid. But its firepower is increasing incredibly destructive, loaded with dozens of missiles. See the missile chart. Uh, and they can be launched in the usual volleys using the targeting systems installed in all the Veritech/Valkyries at the time. Also, with added weight and mass, the armored Veritech has slightly more powerful damage dice in hand to hand combat. The differences between Robotech and Macross: are again about the same as mentioned in previous entries. So, you know, this is the bare bones kind of write up on this. And the the author of this, I still say, had done a very good job. Um, and it's up to us as fans or as gamers more so to say that, if we were to bring it into another universe, whatever universe, I don't care. You know, what would you change on this, if anything? I mean, it's always up to you and the group that you're playing with. Uh, the authors come up with a very nice write up for this, a very nice setup. What would you change if you were to change anything? You know, would you play it as is? Would you give it shields? Would you trade something out for something else? Um, and the reason why I ask that is because, if we were to take and put this into Star Wars, would you change something here or not? If you were to throw this into a Star Trek, which I think less people would be likely to do, but if you did, would you say that this is a kind of developing warp drive kind of civilization? You know, more military than what the Federation is. Um, for those that like the other series and all that, you, I know Babylon 5. If you were to try and take and throw this into Battlestar Galactica, the list is almost endless, and our imaginations are really what limits us in that. That's the beautiful thing that I like about the D6 system is it's easily customizable to make your own universe and play how you want. And that's why I bring all this other stuff into all this, because that is where I think things should go. Some people want to do this and some people want to do that, and that's perfectly fine. We all have our own imaginations. Let it run wild. Um, just enjoy a game with your friends. Sit down, make new friendships, and for really just have fun. So uh, we need ways to kind of disconnect from a lot of the other junk that goes on in the world today. Just sit down with some friends, make some new friends, have a nice imaginative play, and forget all the other goofy things. Just having fun. So, with that, thank you so very much for sitting around listening to me. Uh, and I've said this many times. These are not high quality in a lot of regards. It's really meant for us to think of sitting down around a table talking about these topics. And I do enjoy when people bring things up and all that. I try to respond to everybody. I think I do a good job. I'm a small channel, so it's not like I have a ton of them, but it's still fun being able to reach out, and it amazes me who actually listens to this, and I am very appreciative of that. So I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you in the next video.